Hi, and welcome to the latest episode of Innovation Deciphered. Today I'm joined by Chris Breiner of PreConVision, and we're going to have a really interesting discussion about all things to do with BIM. And it's not just going to be 3D, we're going to talk about 4 and 5D. So I hope you enjoy this episode. Hi Chris, thanks for coming in today. For the benefit of our viewers who may not have come across you before, what's PreConVision all about?
So PreConVision, I could say in a nutshell, we are level 2 BIM, building information modelling, and we mostly focus on 4D visualisation services for our clients.
Okay, so let's just, before we unpack that, just give me a little bit more background about how you came to found PreConVision. What's your background? What did you do before?
So my background, how I got into industry, I started as a carpenter, Q level 3 City and Guilds, and that got me into Architecture University, where I graduated a first class degree from Westminster. And then I was sponsored by Sir Robert McAlpine to do a master's degree in project management, construction. But then I always kind of missed the 3D visualization aspect of architecture and design. So BIM came into construction, and that was a great way to get it in. And so I kind of slotted into there, but I did something more niche, which is called 4D. Not more people have heard of it, and the first time I came across it was a 4D model of the Shard going up with Mace Group.
Yeah.
And then I was approached by Mace, headhunted to work for them, and headed up a studio. And then I got headhunted by the world's biggest software company, Autodesk, to take on a new client, and that's how PreConVision was founded.
Wow. So just for the benefit of our viewers, not all of whom are familiar with BIM and the difference between 1, 2, 3 and 4D, maybe even 5D, can you just let everyone know just a little bit about that, in case they're not unfamiliar with the terms?
Sure. So of course, BIM is a build information modelling, and you could say it's a series of kind of agreed kind of government customs, and you can get 2D in the first set, 3D, but where we come in is BIM level 2, which is 4D, and of course you can get into facilities management, which is 5D, 6D. But we've had some cases we dabbled in a bit of 5D. We are getting some requests to do 5D, but mostly our bread and butter is 4D, and it is quite niche. So a lot of clients don't understand if they need it, but when they've got stakeholders or investors involved on a big major project, that's where it comes useful.
So let's just, for everyone's benefit, 3D, we're talking about a three-dimensional digital model.
Correct.
Of the building or the bit of infrastructure.
Yes.
And what's the 4D?
The 4th is the Gantt chart, which is the time.
Time.
So you've got the 3D and the element of time, which makes the 4D, and 5D can be cost, so that makes the 5D as well.
5D, and I presume 6D something to do with maintenance, is it?
Facilities management, correct, yeah.
Okay, so that's obviously been talked about a lot in construction over the past decade or two, in my experience, and I'm sure it started before then, but it started in the oil and gas industry, didn't it? And it's eventually construction's caught up.
Yeah, correct.
Partly caught up. So just give me an idea about your process and how do you work with your clients? Where do you add the value?
Well, when I started a business back in 2017, I wanted to do something more innovative compared to what I used to do, working for a project management construction consultancy company. So I took on this new software package called Fuser from Hong Kong, so also designed in California, and you got a different aspect to it. So it's more real-time visualization, engaging, it's more photorealistic, and it comes with a huge brand asset library of construction equipment. So for example, what I tend to tell people, if you type in 350, you get a 350 Liberian mobile crane. Type in 500, you get 500 German mobile crane. And you can have them all rigged, it's all animated. So it kind of saves a lot of time in finding these models online, like 3D warehouse traditionally. And it's all construction animation, and it's just better quality output. So our clients love the quality that they get. It's photorealistic, better renders, 4K resolution, 60 frames a second. It's just a better visual output compared to what I used to do for my previous employer.
So I'm guessing with this technology and that library of objects.
Correct. Yeah.
You're able to show what the thing's going to look like during the construction phase.
Yes. Yes.
So I can imagine how that helps getting a project through planning and all the consenting.
Yeah.
But does it help during the construction itself? Do the construction managers and their suppliers and contractors, how do they use it?
Absolutely. Well, there's one project we did in lockdown, it's a data centre, and the client admitted that they was behind program and they was losing the confidence of the client. And they said, we're worried we no longer be on this project. We need a 4D model to give the client confidence where we're going to catch up on program. So I think they bought the project and they knew they couldn't hit the deadlines and deliver it. So we showed them the 4D, which I call intelligent model, showing where they would catch up on program. And then also they have a lot of services on the roof, so it gave them scope to be able to buy other packages, be awarded with the clients. And at the same time, it was used as a visualisation tool for communication in terms of subcontractors, so the interfaces with the scaffolding, the facade going up. And what was interesting was the project was in the middle of Europe, so we had lots of different cultures and languages. We had German, we had Polish, we had French, we also had Dutch, and this was a communication tool where everyone understood with different languages came together in Central Europe. So it was actually quite powerful in this one particular project.
That's interesting. In terms of how you work with, there's two aspects of this. Let's ask the first part. How do you work with your customers? You're usually dealing with the developer or the project manager. Who do you normally work with directly?
So my first client was UK's second largest house builder. So we started working with traditional house builders. Then we was working with tier 1 contractors, but now I mostly work with logistics teams or private property developers. So whether they're in East London or Central London, but yeah, it's mostly the decision makers. It's rarely consultants such as the architects, but now we've been introduced, again through a referral from a developer, we'll be working with a cost manager on a new infrastructure project coming up in London.
So when you're working with, it sounds like what most people in the industry would call an ultimate client, where do they see the benefit of what you're doing? How does it help them? Does it help them get the planning? Does it help them get the finance?
It's funny you say that. I was in an interview, kind of new client meeting last week, and I said, what is the purpose of this 4D model? And he responded, it's to communicate with the stakeholders and the investors. So it's just to keep people involved. And this one particular project, I was quite surprised to hear they had always different phases of residential towers going up, but their design wasn't quite finalised in some phases, but they wanted to hand over other phases early, and the 4D model can be very powerful for that. And they said this is purely for a stakeholder engagement, but obviously it can be for investors as well. So it's quite a good, powerful visual tool when people don't understand a Gantt chart construction program.
I guess you build this at the very start of the project before probably the finance is in place and it's helping to get the finance.
Correct,
and the other stakeholders.
Yeah.
But once the project has started, are you still involved? Are you updating this model, making the adjustments as things come to light?
Yes, on one particular project, and this is, you could say, Europe's largest residential prime real estate, and we got involved at stage 2 REBA design, and then we was invited back to stage 3, and now they're kicking off stage 4 design. So they find in other uses. So the stage 2 was to hire, let's say, the main contractor. The main contractor then worked with us on stage 3, and now they want to use it to engage with their subcontractors and to keep the client, you could say, investor involved on the deadlines and handovers. And we've also been working back and forth with the investor, the client, on one particular project. So it's mostly for the project life cycle. It could end up going to stage 5, but so far we've been involved with stage 2, 3 and 4 on one particular project.
And just for the benefit of everyone watching and listening, the inputs you work with, does somebody provide you with the 3D model and you input that, or do you build that from the 2Ds? How does that work?
So we do get the consultants model, so it can go back to stage 2 or 3, can be the architects, the MEP, structural engineers, but we also add a little bit more. So we would find the context model, the surrounding buildings and the roads, and it's good for obviously for interfaces. So if they do have a BIM model, they typically won't have that data, so it kind of gives us a bit of an edge, and then we would add a logistics strategy on top of that from the sketches from either the developer or the contractor.
This is where your 1,000-ton lever crane comes
Yeah,
in.
yeah.
Now, so you've got the structural guys drawing which you build into the 3D model. You presume you've got the architectural stuff that gives you what it looks like on the outside and the inside. You're then saying that obviously the big benefit now is if you can add in time. Where does the time come from?
So that's working closely with a project planner, construction planner. That's usually a Gantt chart program, and obviously that can be updated quite regularly. On one particular project we've got different options, so we're bringing in the latest option, and then let's just say the third option they're revising currently, so we're working with the second option, and it can quickly, what's very clever about it, every element has got a unique ID code, so unless the plan doesn't change unique ID code, everything will get updated to the new program timeline date, so it kind of just shifts, and it's all in synchronization. So that's why we call it intelligent 4D modeling. That's the power.
Okay, I've got another question on that. At the point at which the client puts the construction out to tender, I'm guessing this 4D model becomes part of the tender package, so that whichever tier 1 contractor and maybe their supply chain, do they get to use it during that process?
It's usually at the interview stage, and they have admitted that it's quite sporty, our 4D output, so whether they can measure up to that deliverable on time, but it does come across quite challenging, so we do show, I guess, the fastest way to deliver it, and they can either try to learn from it, or they do sometimes come up with their own strategy as well. But it's just like a visual aid.
So I'm guessing at the point at which the contract's let, there's an agreed program at that point.
Correct.
Do they then use your model to monitor the progress they're on?
No, it's up to the contractor then to create their own 4D model. And on one particular project, we was actually hired by that contractor, even though we previously worked for the same client. So that was quite ironic. That wasn't planned.
Yeah.
But all the parties were very happy because we had a lot of background experience on the project. And it was a very large scale project, so we had a head start. But yeah, it's not uncommon for them to start a fresh 4D model from scratch. It's probably better too. And then, but as long as they learn from the initial model, and then obviously they put their own input in and try and improve it if they can.
Okay, so that's been really interesting and clear about how 4D, or the fourth dimension, has been added to three-dimensional models. I think we've seen on your website you started talking about 5D, and I know we mentioned it right at early doors, which is cost. That seems sensible to me, and I guess if your client is trying to demonstrate to funders what the cash flow is going to be, having a 5D model is compelling. What's your experience of using 5D modelling?
We once did that for a competition for my previous employer, and we also had the average labour. So in the right hand corner you could see how much they were spending, the time they were spending, and the average labour, the amount of staff or labour on the site, and that was quite powerful. And I remember the expression was, they said it was the best presentation they've ever seen because they had it on a large projector screen with an audience, say a couple of hundred. But now going forward, you can actually asset tag all the items to say a concrete slab or concrete column, and how much, and the cubic meterage, and so you can go into a lot more detail. And you can even click on elements as well, and shows you where it goes in on the program, say a concrete slab, and how much is that area to be poured. So it's just of to get there, you need a lot of information to be shared from the client. Some projects, it's hard to get a Gantt chart program out of a client. And in my experiences, it's because they're behind program, they're embarrassed, they don't want to share that information. But to get the cost element can be a bit tricky. So it's just building that relationship with the client, if they see the value in it, and then we can do it. But yeah, it's something we hope to do more in the future.
And I'm guessing when we talk about time, you mentioned labour. You can also have dumpers on there, you can have compressors, concrete pumps, muck wagons coming in and out, deliveries of slabs or steel, all that can be modelled as part of that.
Absolutely.
Is this where your logistics planning comes in?
Correct. So I started doing something a little bit different. I took a 2D sweat path analysis and I brought it into the 3D kind of assets, combined it with 4D. So you can have our articulated lorries coming in on the 2D/3D sweat path, just to give that realism. So it's not just a access and egress route we're communicating, but actually a thought out strategy of the access egress route through a 2D, 3D, 4D sweat path analysis. So that's where the intelligence comes in. That's just something I'm starting to do by myself.
I'm presuming a lot of this logistics stuff is important or even essential at consenting stage when the developer's trying to get planning consents, because there'll be some constraints about when deliveries can come in, where the layout areas are for lorries and all yada yada yada, all that stuff.
Yeah.
Are you seeing it being used for those purposes?
Yes. Challenges we faced in the past is off-road parking. So if the neighbours do have designated parking space and now it's being demolished, where are they going to park their cars? So we have to take that into consideration, either create new parking spaces, and we do have that annotated in the 4D model. And it just keeps the community more engaged, and so it's just a case of keeping the community engaged.
But in terms of when you've got lots of deliveries to site, which you obviously you absolutely have to in a construction project, unless it's the most carbon neutral rebuild, and somehow or another nothing goes off site, not much comes on. I mean, I've seen them around town. We're sat in the city, by the way, at the moment. You find a whole row of 8-wheelers ready to be loaded with muck, and the site may be a few hundred metres away, and they've obviously found a place which they're allowed to park in. I'm guessing your service helps to identify that and prove that it's not going to mess up all the traffic.
It's funny you say that. I guess our software output is a project management tool as well, and we do get questions like, where is the concrete wagon going to be located on site for the concrete pours? So we have identified what we call pit lanes, loading bays, and so they can serve other aspects. And so our project management UK Safe 4D software output contains a lot of information data. It's all fed in, and then people do ask, where are these loading bays in the pits? And it can be easy to identify. We've already thought of that. So obviously, depends who you speak to in a team. Not everyone would have always answers, but it kind of combines all the data as one compass project management tool. So it can be quite powerful. The more information you feed it, it gets bigger and bigger and bigger. But yeah, we can take that on. We have had that question raised recently.
So that has been really fascinating, particularly where we actually hear about some sort of outline case studies along the way. And you've obviously been a bit of a pioneer bringing the 4D in and some 5D now. But what do you see as the future? What's the future of construction visualisation?
I think clients are more demanding photorealistics. They want to see it actual real, how it is, like you say, the concrete wagons, how they look. We tend to have more fly-throughs, walk-throughs. We've actually got people wearing hard hats, doing walk-arounds on site. They want to see safety protection. They want to see the hoist connected. And now is an element of artificial intelligence. So now the software has a capability, the software we're using, to actually bring in the 4D program and kind of plug it in within a matter of seconds. So there is that feature as well that's now happening. So
just mine and the viewers' benefit, you say this AI helps you can bring a program in much quicker.
Correct.
So what's the barrier at the moment? Is it?
The barrier is actually, for example, cutting up the model, which can be easily utilised in the 4D software. So if you've got a massive concrete slab, it's got to be cut up in 3 stages. I don't think the AI software picks that up, but it's just having to know how the 3D spatial kind of background and to handle the model. So that's the experience that you need to manage these, but there are ways how you can bring in the Gantt chart program and link it with AI now without having to do too many clicks.
And I've always speculated in my own mind with these more and more sophisticated models. Of course, a lot of time and effort and thought goes into, if you're on the construction side of the industry, whether you're a main contractor or a subcontractor, trying to optimise the program and the methodology, either to save time or reduce the number of people on site or congestion, make it safer. How do you think the future you might be able to do sort of scenario planning with these models to optimise the construction sequence, for example, based on level out the number of men we need on site? When I say men, I mean people. For instance, so we don't want more than 100 people on site, so that peak where it says 200, you've got to do something. Or is there a way of saying we can't have more than 4 vehicles parked up in the street? Is that capable now? Do you see it coming in?
Absolutely. So again, with the 2D, 3D square path analysis, we do show that within the model. But in terms of case studies, you can focus on one area. So for example, we like to call it X-ray, an isolated kind of area. So if you want to focus on how many people working on the roof, MEP for example, or the facade, you can do those isolated case studies quite effectively. And so if it is like a detailed roof, you're working on a skyscraper, you might want to have an independent 4D program just focusing on that, and then the labour, how they could deliver that. So that is quite powerful. We do get these kind of requests, so that's necessary as well.
And I'm assuming if you've got the 5D in there, you can say, well, just give me an output that tells me how many loads of concrete I need a day.
Correct. Yeah, it's just sharing information.
Yeah, really, really interesting. Well, Chris, that's been a fascinating discussion and update on all things BIM. Thank you for coming in today, and thanks everyone for watching. See you on the next one.
Thank you everyone.